Hello, everybody. It's Be the Scientist, and it's our very last day of our first themed week. It's the end of Gravity Week. I'm also going to be announcing at the end of the episode what next week's theme is going to be. You can check out my calendar in the link above on my link tree at my public calendar. I've got recommended streams as well as private booking sessions, so you can see when I have available. You can also check out my website above right here, BeTheScientist.com, for any kind of resources. You can learn more about me and you can see some of my favorite activities. So we have two books today that I'm really excited to share with everybody. So first, I'm just going to make sure to bring up the comments here on my phone, just so that I can make sure that I'm not missing anybody. So if you have anything to say, write it in the comments here. Tell me where you're watching from. I always love to hear that. We've got some new fans over the last week. So thank you so much if you've recently liked my page. It means the world to me as a laid off educator to continue to teach and engage and inspire kids all across the country. So without further ado, I would like to share our first book. We're going to start with a book called Shmequal and talk a little bit about the laws of motion. So let's start it up now. Oh, it looks like my friends the Oldhams are here. Hey, Kira and Lainey. And whoops, we're on the wrong page. There we go. So we are going to start, like I said, with a book called Shmequal. Okay, and it looks like we've got another bear in the story. Shmequal. A little brown mouse sat under a leaf watching a school picnic. The children finished eating and began to play. Some played tag. Some chose teams for a game. The two sides have to be equal, one of them shouted. The children pulled on the ends of a rope. One team was pulled over a line. The other team cheered, "Hooray! We won! We won!" Then one of the teachers called to the children. They all got into a big yellow bus. Uh-oh. Oh, excuse me. Got a little seasonal allergies going on here. Oh my goodness, it looks like my friend Mr. Frost is here. Hey, I know him. Okay, sorry about that. One of the teachers called to the children. They all got into a big yellow bus that drove off down the road. All was quiet. That looked like a lot of fun. Hey, Bear, called Mouse. Come out and play. Bear walked out from the trees. What do you want to play? It's a game, squeaked Mouse. You take one end of the rope and I take the other. We both pull to see who wins. Has anyone ever played this game before? It's called Tug of War. I love it. Bear gave the rope a mighty yank. Mouse flew across the field. She landed on the ground with a thump. Hey, said Bear, where'd you go? No fair, squealed Mouse. She picked herself up. I forgot the teams have to be equal. Shmequal, said Bear. Suddenly, sharp claws grabbed Mouse. It was Bobcat. Gotcha, he snarled. Help, squealed Mouse. Bear stood up on his hind legs and growled. Let Mouse go right now. Bobcat whimpered. I just want to join the game. See, Wolf's right here. He wants to play too. Wolf stepped out in the open. Mouse brushed off her fur. She said in her bravest voice, Of course you guys can play. Everyone can play as long as the teams are equal. Equal Shmequal, said Bear. He reached into one of the trash cans and pulled out a half-eaten sandwich. Rabbit hopped to the field. Can we play too? Rabbit asked. Box Turtle plodded close behind. What does equal mean anyway? He asked. Equal means fair, explained Mouse. We should divide into 2 equal teams somehow. Equal Shmequal, Bear mumbled with a mouthful of chocolate cake. Let's try meat eaters against plant eaters, said Rabbit. That would be fair. What about Turtle and me? Asked Mouse. We eat anything small enough. Well, said Rabbit, what are your favorite foods? The mouse replied, I like blackberries best. I eat mostly bugs, said Turtle, but my favorite food is dandelions. If you like plants best, you can be on my team, said Rabbit. So it's animals that eat only meat against the rest of us. Bobcat laughed. You think this is equal? Huh! With just one hard pull, he and Wolf yanked Mouse, Rabbit, and Turtle across the line. They landed in a heap. That wasn't equal, Turtle complained, perking from his shell. Bobcat said, everyone with fur go to one side and everyone without fur go to the other. But that left only Turtle on a team. That couldn't be equal. Does anyone know what halves are? Rabbit asked. I've heard the farmer talk about halves. Halves are what you get when you make 2 groups with the same number, Mouse said. We can't make halves because there are 5 of us. Just then, Mouse saw hooves behind a bush. Hey, she said, maybe Deer will want to play. Then we can make halves. Deer slowly stepped out of the woods. Wow, looks like a lot of fun, she said, but I want to keep an eye on Wolf and Bobcat. I'll pull from behind them. The animals lined up, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. They pulled, but once again, Mouse, Rabbit, and Turtle were easily dragged over the line. Hey, no fair, complained Rabbit. They're all big and we're all small, so it's not equal at all. You're right, said Mouse. The numbers are equal, but that doesn't mean the teams are equal. Equal Shmequal, Bear exclaimed, finishing off a slice of pizza. He has not participated yet. The animals scowled at each other. Everyone began talking at the same time. It's no fair, you're so much bigger. You're just mad because you lost. Well, you don't care if the teams are equal as long as you win. Mouse sat up herself and tried to think of a new idea. She tapped a tiny foot and swirled a wiry whisker. Listen, said Mouse, listen up. She said louder, I have an idea. The animals stopped fighting. Well, asked the Bobcat, what is your great idea? I thought that instead of equal numbers, she explained, our teams could have equal weights. We could use the seesaw to figure it out. Look, said Mouse, when what's on one side of the seesaw is equal to what's on the other side, the seesaw balances. You can tell because it's straight across. Okay, said Turtle. Let me get on first since I can't jump. He walked on to the end of the seesaw, touching the ground. I'll get on the other side, Wolf said. Wolf jumped onto the center of the seesaw and made his way to the end. Turtle was lifted high in the air. He looked down the long way to the ground and tried not to be scared. Deer got up on Turtle's side. Their side sank down, and Wolf rose up into the air. "I'm next!" shouted Bobcat. He got onto Wolf's side, but Wolf and Bobcat together were still up in the air. With a mighty hop, Rabbit landed in front of the Bobcat. Now the seesaw was almost balanced. "Come on!" shouted Rabbit. "You're the last one, Mouse!" Mouse scampered up next to the deer. The seesaw teetered back and forth before resting perfectly straight across. The teams were balanced. So it looks like a deer plus a turtle plus a mouse is equal to a rabbit plus a bobcat plus a wolf. "We did it! We're equal!" Mouse squeaked. Then Bear looked up from his crumbs and ran over roaring, "Wait for me!" He jumped on, and down went his side of the seesaw with a bump. Deer, Mouse, and Turtle went flying into the air. "Oops," said Bear. "I guess it's not equal anymore." "We can get this right," Mouse said cheerfully. "Let's try again. Bear, you get on first." Bear sat at one end with the other end high in the air. Bobcat offered to get on the high side first. "If I fall, I'll land on my feet. Cats always do." The rest of the animals got on. Each one made Bear's side lift a little bit. Finally, all the animals were on except the mouse. "Come on," shouted the rabbit. "We're almost equal." Mouse jumped onto the middle of the seesaw. Bear's side was higher, so she walked towards him. The seesaw was perfectly balanced. So now a bear plus a mouse is equal to a turtle, a deer, a rabbit, a bobcat, and a wolf. Wow, I've never played tug of war by mass before. They jumped off one by one and picked up the rope. The bear and mouse were on one side of the line, and all the other animals were on the other. "Okay," said Mouse. "Now the teams have equal weight. Whichever team pulls the other across the line wins." Bear and Mouse pulled Turtle, Rabbit, Bobcat, Wolf, and Deer pulled back. "I'm bigger than all of you," said Bear. "I'll win." "Come on," said the rabbit to her teammates. "There are more of us. Pull harder." They pulled and tugged, but neither team moved an inch. "What if no one can win?" asked the rabbit. I think I'm losing track of the voices here, but trying my best. Suddenly, they heard a loud buzzing overhead. "Bees!" shouted Bear. "There must be honey nearby." He took one paw off the rope to point at the swarm of bees. Just then the other team gave a mighty pull and Bear stepped over the line. "Hooray!" said Rabbit. "We won! We won!" "But the teams were equal," said Deer. "How did we win?" "What really matters most is equal effort," said Mouse. "When we all pull our hardest, the effort was equal. That's why no one could win. But when Bear saw the bees, he forgot to pull. The effort wasn't equal anymore." Oh, so they tricked him and took advantage of a distraction. That might work on me, I'll have to say. "Equal Shmequal," said Bear. "I want some honey." Mouse laughed. "Time for a honey break," she said. The animals followed the bees to their hive in a tree. There was more than enough honey for everyone, and they shared it equally. What it means to be equal. In math, to be equal means to have parts that are the same in weight, size, quantity, or other measure. In art, Equal can mean symmetrical, which means you can draw a line through the middle of a picture and one half will look just like the other half. In law, equal means having the same opportunities, rights, and privileges. And in team sports, the teams have equal numbers. All the players must give their best effort in order to have the best chance of winning. The end. And that was Equal Shmequal. Wow, that was a really fun story. So now for our experiment, this is one that you're going to do after we're all done reading. I want to challenge you to find things of all different mass, which means weight, and I want you to see if you can find something or a bunch of things that add up to the weight of a shoe. So if you have a bathroom scale at home, you can put a bunch of objects on it. First, you're going to put yourself on a scale, see how much you weigh, write it down so you don't forget. Then try and pile on different objects that your grown-up say is okay to take away and see if you can get the same weight. So I weigh a lot of pounds, so it might take quite a few things. I might have to put a chair, a guitar, maybe some books. That's a good way to get it a lot heavier. So now we are going to come to our second book and one of my personal favorites, and it seems like Kira and Lainey love this as well. We're going to transition to the Magic School Bus. Okay, the Magic School Bus plays ball, a book about forces. Hey, we learned all about forces this week. We learned about gravity, which is a force that's on the earth all around us. And we also learned about things like inertia. When something's moving, something has to stop it for it to stop, and something has to make it go to make it go. So let's see what Miss Frizzle has in store for us. The Magic School Bus Plays Ball, a book about forces. When most classes play baseball, they go out on the field. But that's not what happens when you have a teacher like Miss Frizzle. In our class, when we play baseball, we go on a field trip. Oh, so Oldhams, the activity is actually something that you're going to do after the episode is over. So I'll just reiterate real quick. You're going to try and find a bunch of items that equal your weight. So you can weigh yourself, or if you know what you weigh, then you're going to take that number and try to collect a bunch of objects that equal the same weight. So this is something that might take a little bit of time, so you can do it after we're done with our story time. Okay, in our class, when we play baseball, we go on a field trip. It strikes me that Miss Frizzle is always having a ball. She's a real hit with me. It all started during recess. We were playing baseball. Ralphie was at bat. Wanda was pitching. The rest of us had taken our positions in the field. There was only one thing missing. "Hey, Wanda, where's home plate?" Ralphie asked. "There isn't one," Wanda replied. "You're gonna have to pretend." "But I'll have nothing to slide into when I hit a home run." Wanda began her pitch. She lifted her leg high, reached back, and suddenly Dorothy Ann raced out onto the field. "Hey, you guys," she shouted, "check this out. I just found the coolest thing." Ralphie scowled. "Dorothy Ann," he said with a groan, "not now. I'm one swing away from hitting my way into the record books." "But you've got to see this. It will change our lives." Dorothy Ann insisted. She held up a book. It was called A Child's Garden of Physics. Everyone burst out laughing. "Change our lives? We didn't think so." "I think I'll wait until the movie comes out, Dorothy Ann," says Ralphie. I'm real happy for you, Dorothy Ann, Ralphie said, but right now I've got a game-winning homer to hit. But you don't understand, Dorothy Ann said. This book is all about what gets things moving and what makes them stop. Forces, friction, pushes, pulls. Don't try to force us to listen to this. You're being a little pushy, don't you think? Nothing could stop Dorothy Ann when she was on a roll. Okay, picture a big red sled sitting in the snow, she explained. It's not going anywhere. But if someone comes along and gives the sled a push, it will move. That's a force. The sled will keep moving until something stops it. Like dirt, she continued. Things rubbing together cause a force called friction. Good job. You remember that from last time. And the sled stops because the dirt is pushing it against the direction it's moving. This force against the runners is the friction in action. Friction slows down and stops nearly every motion on Earth. Okay, so now we know what friction is, but we didn't know was why Dorothy Ann thought it was so important. Can anyone at home think of why friction might be important with baseball? So remember, friction is something that rubs together or something that slows down because of the tiny bumps on it. So why would we need to know about friction when we're thinking about baseball? If you think you know, you can write your answer in the comments. Now, just off the top of my head, I think we need friction because when Ralphie wants to slide into home plate, he needs to take into account all the friction that will be under his legs. So he needs to start sliding at the exact right place, otherwise he's not going to make it all the way home. So he might only want to start his slide a few feet before home plate. Another reason that friction is important here is because when you're holding a glove and you're trying to catch a ball, the ball and the glove have friction in it. It stops that force, and the friction helps you to catch it in your glove and keep it nice and still before you throw it to the right play. Okay, so now we're on the next page here. Ralphie was tired of hearing about friction. He picked up his bat and tapped at the dirt where home plate should have been. Then he remembered Dorothy Ann's book. The book would make a great home plate, Ralphie thought. It was flat, white, and just the right size. Hey, Dorothy Ann, that book does sound kind of cool, he said. It is, Ralphie, Dorothy Ann agreed happily. She thought Ralphie wanted to read the book. And look at this, right here on page 97. Ralphie looked at the page. It showed a picture of a baseball bat. It showed a picture of a baseball field. It would be impossible to play baseball on that field, Dorothy Ann told Ralphie. There's no friction there. Can I borrow the book? Sure, but you'll have to take very good care of it. Ralphie grinned. Now he had a home plate. Let's play ball, he called out. But before we could get back on the field, we heard familiar honking coming from the parking lot. It was the magic school bus. All aboard! Miss Frizzle cried out from the driver's seat. We all ran to the bus. Ralphie dropped Dorothy Ann's book as he raced over. But Miss Frizzle, we're in the middle of an important game. Just the field trip delay, Ralphie. It's time to explore the unknown. Be brave, be adventurous, be bold. Today, we're going to a baseball game, Miss Frizzle announced. We were confused. A baseball game wasn't new or different or exciting like most of our field trips were. Miss Frizzle, can we go someplace really unusual? Dorothy Ann asked. She turned to Ralphie. Like that place I showed you, Ralphie. You know, page 97. Show 'em. Ralphie stared out the window as we passed the baseball field. Dorothy Ann followed the glance. She gasped. Her book was lying in the dirt. A field trip? Okay, just as long as we don't get blasted, toasted, or eaten. I'm happy. Don't worry, Arnold, that won't happen until next week. Oh, Miss Frizzle. Ralphie, how could you? Dorothy Ann asked. Don't worry, Dorothy Ann, Miss Frizzle assured her. We'll get your book and keep Ralphie happy too. Bus, do your stuff, she shouted. The magic school bus barreled across the playground in direction of Dorothy's book. The bus spun around and around. Dorothy Ann's book blew open and we drove right in. Time to hit the books, said Miss Frizzle. This is a whole new way to check out a book. We watched through the windows as the pages flipped by. Miss Frizzle, stop here, Dorothy Ann shouted excitedly. It's page 97, the page I was talking about. It's all about a world with no friction. It looks like the world of baseball to me, Ralphie said. The bus ground to a halt. Ralphie raced out the door. Come on, he said. Ralphie, watch out! Dorothy Ann warned. The ground on that field has no friction. Without anything to push against, like the friction of his feet against the ground, Ralphie couldn't stop. He bounced off one wall, slid across the field, and crashed into another wall. Whoa! Wow, it's Ralphie, the runaway pinball. So it would kind of be like ice, except even ice has a certain amount of friction, so even less friction than that. We lowered ourselves onto the baseball field. We slipped and slid across the field. It felt like ice skating, only without the skates. Miss Frizzle blew her whistle. It was time for the game to begin. But without any friction to help us stop, we couldn't get into our positions. What were we going to do? Just then, the bus flew overhead. It had turned into a magic school bus blimp. Liz was in the driver's seat. She pushed a button and a giant crane dropped down from the bus. The crane lifted us up like bowling pins and placed us into our positions on the field. Play ball! Miss Frizzle cried out. Welcome to the All Frizzle Friction-Free Baseball Classic, Miss Frizzle announced into her microphone. The ground out there has no friction. We repeat, no friction. Well, folks, believe it or not, we're coming to you from inside my textbook, Dorothy Ann added. Our playing field is slipperier than ice. Miss Frizzle, where'd you learn to announce like that? You'd be surprised what teachers do during summer breaks. Wanda got ready to throw her first pitch. She lifted her leg, pulled back her arm, and hurled the ball at Ralphie. The ball raced in Ralphie's direction, but Wanda slid backward towards second base. And look at that, folks, Dorothy Ann announced. The force Wanda used really got that ball going and pushed her way back towards second base. Ralphie kept his eye on the ball. He swung it and as it sailed over the plate. Crack! Ralphie hit a hot grounder right down the third baseline. Carlos tried to scoop up the ball. But without any friction to slow it down, the ball was going too fast to catch. It sped right past him. That happens to me all the time. We waited for Ralphie to run to first base, but he didn't run. The force of the swinging bat started Ralphie spinning in circles. Ralphie spun his way to first, and he kept on spinning around the bases. Just as he was about to reach home, Ralphie slammed right into Dorothy Ann. They grabbed onto each other and spun around the field. Do I look like home plate? If you're home plate, I must be safe. Miss Frizzle, Dorothy Ann suggested, I think we better call this game due to lack of friction. Miss Frizzle agreed. Game, she called out. It was time to go back on the bus and go back to the world with friction. Liz pulled out a pin from inside the bus and popped the blimp like a balloon. The bus whizzed on. The bus whizzed on and finally landed safely just outside the frictionless baseball field. Now, all we had to do was get on the bus. But without friction to help us walk, how could we reach the bus? Oh, it looks like my mom's joined us. Hey, Mom. Suddenly, the hood ornament on the front of the bus shot out, trailing a rope behind. The ornament hooked itself onto a wall across the field. "Grab on, class," Miss Frizzle ordered. We reached up and took the rope in our hands. "A push is one force that can get us moving," Miss Frizzle said. "What's the opposite?" Wanda gripped the rope tightly. "A pull?" she grunted. Miss Frizzle smiled. "Excellent," she said. And so we pulled ourselves, hand over hand, down the rope and off the frictionless field. So at least there was friction on the rope so that they could grab onto it. And Ralphie, as he always says, "I knew I should have stayed home today." We never realized that friction did so much. We all owed Dorothy Ann a big apology for laughing at her. "Wow," Wanda exclaimed. "You were right, Dorothy Ann." "Can I borrow your book when Ralphie's through with it?" Tim asked. "Me too," Arnold said. "Then me?" Carlos chimed in. "Wait a sec," Ralphie interrupted. "No one gets the book until we get out of it." And then from inside the bus, in my old school, we pressed flowers in our books. We piled into the bus, sat down, and buckled up our seatbelts. It was getting a little windy outside, so we shut the windows tight. "Let's book it," Miss Frizzle said. She put the key into the ignition, but before the bus could move, we heard a loud, scary boom. The wind had lifted the cover of Dorothy Ann's book right off the ground. The cover and about 50 pages had smacked down on the bus. We had to get out of here, and fast. "Any suggestions, class?" Miss Frizzle asked us. "Better floor it, Miss Frizzle," Wanda proposed. Miss Frizzle pushed down on the gas pedal. The engine roared, the wheels spun, but the bus didn't budge. "Oh no!" Dorothy Ann exclaimed. "The cover of the book is pushing down so hard that it's creating too much friction for the wheels to push us out. We're stuck!" "I guess we'll be food for the bookworms." Carlos. "I can't believe this," Ralphie said. "We're stuck in Dorothy Ann's book. What will happen to us if we don't get out?" Phoebe asked. Miss Frizzle just smiled. "As I always say, those who are book-bound should take a look around." She opened the bus door and leaped outside. "This way, class." Miss Frizzle always knows what to do. We really, really didn't want to get out of the bus, but we didn't want to be stuck inside the book without our teacher either. So we followed Miss Frizzle onto page 97 of Dorothy Ann's book. They're going back to frictionless world. Oh boy. There's not enough friction down here to push the bus out. And there's too much friction up here. That's between the page and the top of the bus. Keisha tried to gather all the facts. "Okay, where do we stand?" she asked. Somewhere between pages 96 and 97, Carlos teased. Keisha frowned. "That is not what she meant." "Carlos," Keisha scolded. "Hey, I'm just trying to lighten things up," he apologized. Tim smiled. Carlos had just given him a great idea. "Lighten things up," Tim explained. "That's it. We'll climb up on the roof and push the book." Keisha looked at him. "You're saying we should hold up the book, get in the bus, and drive away?" Tim nodded. "How?" Arnold asked him. "Good question, Arnold," Miss Frizzle remarked. "Anyone have an answer?" "Dorothy Ann, this is all your fault." "That's it, Ralphie, you're a genius." Dorothy Ann had another idea. Look, the letters peel off the page, she said as she stripped off a lowercase t. I have a plan. We'll split into 2 teams. And we learned how to make equal teams earlier, right? I wonder how they'll split up. Do you think by mass? By number? By smarts? I'm guessing maybe by number. Ralphie's team goes on the roof of the bus and pushes up on the book. At the same time, my team piles letters near the book's spine. That will hold the book open long enough for us to get back in the bus and drive away. So they're going to use all the letters to keep the book propped open. That seems like a good idea, but they're going to need a lot of letters. Excellent plan, Ralphie told Dorothy Ann, but why doesn't your team push up the book while my team piles the letters? Okay? Dorothy Ann stared angrily at Ralphie. Not okay, she replied. Yes, okay, Ralphie insisted. Not, Dorothy Ann declared. Arnold walked up and interrupted their argument. Dorothy Ann, what is it again that makes everything stop? He asked. Dorothy Ann looked confused. Why was Arnold asking her this now? Friction, she replied curiously. Friction? Arnold turned to Ralphie. If there's a lot of friction, you can't get anywhere, right, Ralphie? He asked. Ralphie nodded. Well, I think there is a little too much friction between you two. Arnold said, so if we're ever going to get out of this book, we're going to have to get rid of all the friction between us. Dorothy Ann and Ralphie, excuse me again. I should probably have my windows shut. Ooh, that pollen. Where was I? Oh, yes. So if we're ever going to get out of this book, we're going to have to get rid of the friction between us. Dorothy Ann and Ralphie sat together. They reached out and shook hands. It's a good thing I didn't stay home today. Out of the book and through the words, back to class we go. That reminds me of over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. Except this one says, out of the book and through the words, back to class we go. Oh, that's smart. Good work, Miss Frizzle. It took a little while, but we finally piled enough letters in the spine of the book to hold the cover up. Miss Frizzle led us back on the bus, and we zoomed right out of Dorothy Ann's book. As soon as the bus stopped on the school baseball field, Ralphie raced for the door. Wait a minute, Ralphie, Dorothy Ann warned. Remember what happened last time you jumped out of the bus like that? Ralphie nodded. Dorothy Ann stepped in front of him. She slowly stepped down to the ground. She moved her foot back and forth in the sand. Never fear, there's friction here, she assured Ralphie. We couldn't wait to play a game of friction-filled baseball. Dorothy Ann was the first one at bat. Wanda pitched the ball. Dorothy Ann swung and crack! Dorothy Ann exerted a lot of force on the ball. Carlos was out in left field. Would he be able to apply his force to stop the ball? Carlos held his glove high in the air, but the ball soared right over his head. Finally, the ball dropped to the ground and rolled. Luckily for Carlos, friction caused by the grass pushing against the forward motion of the ball slowed the ball to a stop. Carlos scooped up the ball and threw it across the field. Dorothy Ann slid for home. But where was home plate? It took us a while, but we finally found home plate. Ralphie was reading it. I never thought I'd see the day that Ralphie read for fun. Dorothy Ann was right, he said. This book is great. As I always say, never judge a book by its cover, said Miss Frizzle. And then there's some letters to the editor. Dear editor, I would really like to find a copy of Dorothy Ann's textbook, but I went to my library and there's nothing like it in the Friction section. Does this mean that here on Earth, friction is the only game in town? Forcefully yours, a Frizzle fan. Dear fan, you're right. Friction is the only game in town, but there are ways of giving friction the slip. You do that every time you go down a slide or go skateboarding, water skiing, or snow skiing. Friction is all around us, but sometimes there's less of it. Signed, the editor. Dear editor, I go to Phoebe's old school. We never go on field trips like the ones Miss Frizzle takes her class on. I don't mean to be pushy, but how far do I need to go to experience forces? Sincerely, Phoebe's friend. Dear friend, forces are simply pushes and pulls, and those exist just about everywhere you are, so look no farther than your home or school or, of course, your local baseball field. Signed, the editor. Okay, and it looks like Miss Frizzle has left us with one activity. From the desk of Miss Frizzle. Take chances, ask questions, go on a field trip in your own backyard. Here are 2 ways you can experiment with forces in motion. Number 1, tug of war. Forces are pushes and pulls. All pushes and pulls have strengths, like how hard we push and how hard we are pulled. When 2 evenly matched teams play tug of war and neither team wins, the 2 poles have canceled each other out. But if you add a new teammate to one side, it's sure to be more pull in that direction. And I just had a friend join me, Humera Badir. I will be posting this along with all of my episodes after I'm done. You can also check out my episodes on my YouTube page. So you can go up to my link tree right up here if you want to check it out on YouTube, or wait until around 3 or 4 o'clock for when I have this video finished uploading. Thank you so much for the question. And number 2, Miss Frizzle says kickball. If you have a ball, you can experiment with friction. We know that friction works by pushing against the direction that something is moving, but different surfaces apply different amounts of friction. Which surface applies more friction? Sand, grass, cement, or polished wood? To find out, give your ball a little force to get it rolling. A kick or push will do. Across each of those different surfaces, you'll find that the more slippery the surface, the less friction and the farther the ball will go. Signed, Miss Frizzle. The end. Wow, that was a great story. We had 2 great stories today. So now I would like to announce our second themed week. Everybody at home, drum roll, please. Next week, our theme is the human body. We're going to learn how to take care of our body, and we're going to use what we learned about forces to take care of our muscles. So tune in next week where we learn all about the human body and the amazing ways that it takes care of us and ways that we can take care of it. My name is B, and if you learned anything new today, your grown-ups can donate some money to my PayPal or Venmo. It is not expected, but it is appreciated. And if you want to learn more information about me, you can go to www.bethescientist.com or check out some of my additional resources at my link tree. So you all know what comes next, our goodbye song. Sing along with me if you know the words. So long, farewell to you, my friend. Goodbye for now. Until we meet again, so long, farewell to you, my friend. Goodbye for now, until we meet again. It's been great to play and read together in the hive, but now it's time to say goodbye. So long, farewell to you, my friends. Goodbye for now, until we meet again. everybody. See you on Monday.